Their conflicts began with trifles: a place in line, noise behind the wall, a dispute over parking. Ordinary situations that most people resolve calmly turned into fundamental battles for them. In an effort to control everything around them, they made choices that gradually led to dangerous decisions. These 6 cases show how everyday stubbornness and uncontrollable emotion can turn into a tragedy when a person stops seeing the boundaries and the situation gets out of control. A supermarket on the outskirts of Sacramento was operating in extended pre-holiday mode. The aisles were filled with the smell of cinnamon, wrapping paper, and heated lamps over coolers of ready-to-eat food. There were more shoppers than usual, and the lines at the checkouts moved slowly, which was annoying for everyone, but most accepted the situation as an inevitability before Christmas. Mary Ann Holden, a 48-year-old resident of the neighborhood, was one of the minority who didn't want to accept it. She had been watching a young woman with a baby stroller in line for more than 10 minutes. Mary Ann was convinced that she had cut her off, even though no one else had seen the moment when it allegedly happened. Her reaction was quick: a sharp exhale, a defiant look, and then the obligatory filming of the offender on her phone. She raised the camera as if she was capturing important evidence and began to comment loudly on the situation, attracting the attention of other customers. The cashier tried to intervene, suggesting that she call the manager, but Mary Ann was already doing her own thing. She came closer, waving her phone in the woman's face, demanding that she admit the violation. Several people in the line asked her to calm down, but this escalated the tension even more. Mary Ann took any remark as proof that everyone around her was siding with the impudent youth. When she saw that the manager did not approach immediately, she decided to act on her own. Next to the cash registers was a lightweight advertising stand, a small frame covered with a banner with a New Year's promotion on it. Airy gift boxes were placed on it, and a sheet of thin plastic was screwed to the bottom. The structure was designed to support a decorative load, but not a person's weight. Nevertheless, Mary Ann climbed up to the lower ledge to get a better angle for the photo and to attract the attention of the administration. Someone behind her shouted, warning her that it was dangerous, but she wasn't listening. Everything irritated her: the slow line, the indifference of others, the silence of the woman with the stroller. The stand swayed in a few seconds. Mary Ann, trying to hold on, made a sharp movement, shifting her weight to her right foot. The metal frame, weakened by the constant movement of the goods, could not withstand it. A thin sheet of plastic slipped from the fasteners, and the woman lost her balance. She let go of the phone as she fell, and it flew towards the frozen food. The fall was short but uncontrolled. Mary Ann hit the back of her head on the edge of the metal frame of the refrigerator compartment. People around her recoiled, and several customers rushed to her side, but within a minute it became obvious that her condition was critical. The cashier called an ambulance, but the paramedics who arrived 6 minutes later were unable to restore her pulse. The injury to the base of the skull was incompatible with life. The supermarket manager reviewed the surveillance cameras and confirmed that no queue disruption was recorded. The incident was another reminder to the staff of how quickly a minor conflict can escalate into an uncontrollable situation. The line moved on in complete silence, and Mary Ann's phone with its camera open and a comment unfinished lay in the middle of the freezer section until the police arrived. After sunset, the quiet streets of North Atlanta seemed almost empty. The 2-story buildings stood in straight rows, and the automatic gates at the entrances worked flawlessly, as they were regularly checked by the management company. For most residents, it was an ordinary evening, but for 52-year-old Gabriella Mason, known for her numerous conflicts with couriers, the next delivery was the occasion for a clash that ended in tragedy. Around 8 in the evening, the delivery van stopped at her house. The driver, a young man named Jaden, brought a small package, left it at the door, and was about to drive away when he saw Gabriella walking quickly into the yard. She demanded to see his service ID, to explain why he had parked at an angle, and to justify why he had left the package, not the way it was written on the package. Jaden tried to politely correct the situation, but Gabriella continued to escalate the conflict. She blocked the narrow exit with herself, saying that the guy would not move until she confirmed his identity. A few seconds later, she was filming him on her phone, commenting on his every move, as if preparing an evidence base for a complaint. When Jaden tried to slowly drive around her, Gabriella turned sharply toward the entrance gate. She was outraged that the sensor had heard the van's movement and started to open automatically. Convinced that the driver was trying to escape, she grabbed the edge of the metal door, trying to hold it open. The system was not designed for such resistance. The drive clicked briefly, the mechanism locked halfway, and the sash froze in an unusual position. Instead of stepping away, Gabriella took a step closer, wedging herself between the moving part of the gate and the stationary post. She tried to push the gate back, shouting that she was detaining an intruder. Her strength was not enough, but her emotional fervor did not allow her to stop. Suddenly, the electric drive resumed operation. Jaden's unsuccessful movement of the van activated the sensor again. The door moved forward sharply, pinning Gabriella between the metal panel and the pole. The impact was too strong. Her chest was trapped, her ribs cracked, and the air was forced out of her lungs in a short wheeze. Jaden jumped out of the van, trying to push the gate open, but the system had already locked in a critical position. He shouted at her to try to move, but Gabriella only made ragged gasps of breath. A neighbor, who heard the noise from the street, came running and tried to unclench the metal with Jaden, but without power, the mechanism would not budge. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes, but it was enough time for Gabriella's condition to become irreversible. The paramedic only noted the absence of breathing and pulse. According to the forensic expert, the combined chest injuries and neck compression were fatal. Police reviewed the surveillance footage from a neighboring house. The video showed the entire course of the situation. Gabriella blocked the gate with her own hands, interfered with the mechanism, and stayed inside the danger zone. There was no aggression on the part of the courier. He was just trying to leave the area after the delivery. The management company subsequently checked all the automatic systems in the area and added new warning stickers prohibiting tampering with the gate. For the locals, it was a cold reminder that sometimes it only takes one impulsive decision to turn an ordinary evening into a fatal mistake. The Seattle apartment complex on Pine Street had a typical architecture of early 2000s buildings: wide corridors, light walls, stairwells with metal railings, and chamber lighting that created an even penumbra in the evenings. For most residents, it was a calm, predictable space. But for 45-year-old Allison Reed, every sound seemed excessive, every step in the corridor a sign of disrespect. Over the course of the year, she repeatedly contacted the management company with complaints. Neighbors closing their doors too loudly, children running around at inappropriate times, or someone talking by the elevator for longer than necessary. She was annoyed by ordinary residential sounds that other residents perceived as background. Eventually, most of her neighbors began to avoid meeting her on the stairs and in the hall. On a Saturday night, when a family from the 3rd floor was celebrating their daughter's birthday, laughter and soft music could be heard from the apartment. The time was not yet late, about 9 o'clock. But for Allison, it was enough time to leave the apartment in sweatpants and with her phone in hand, as if she were recording a crime. She went to her neighbor's door and knocked several times. The hostess opened the door and explained that the party was almost over and the children were leaving. But Allison did not listen. Her voice was loud and her intonations were harsh. She stated that she intended to give the recording to the management company and began filming the interior of the apartment without permission. In response, the family asked her to stop filming. Several guests came out into the hallway to try to calm the situation. Allison kept walking backwards, holding the camera straight ahead. She did so as if the video was her main argument, but her focus on the screen made her unaware of where she was standing. The corner of the stairwell was just 1.5 meters behind her, where the maintenance staff had removed the handrail for replacement during the day. The temporary guardrail had been removed by 2 children at the beginning of the party, treating it as a toy. One of the guests noticed the danger zone and warned her, "Be careful, there's no handrail." But Allison took the remark as an attempt to interfere with her documentation. She took another step back, and for a moment, her heel hovered over an empty space. The next second, she lost her balance. The phone fell out of her hands and hit the stairs, and Allison herself, turning her body around, went down the open flight of stairs. Several neighbors rushed to the railing, but only had time to see her fall to the concrete platform of the second floor, hitting the back of her head and the back of her neck. The noise attracted other residents. Someone immediately called an ambulance. Someone tried to check her pulse, but her breathing was already uneven and intermittent. Paramedics arrived 7 minutes later, but the injuries were critical: a fractured skull base, brain contusion, and multiple rib fractures. After the incident, the management company conducted an inspection and confirmed that the handrail had been dismantled as part of a routine maintenance and that the warning tapes had disappeared before the fall. Residents of the complex recalled that Allison had for years taken any noise as a personal affront and often created conflicts where others saw no problem. That evening, a situation that could have ended with a short conversation or a simple apology turned into a tragedy. Allison would never let go of the video she was trying to shoot, but the impulsive step back was her last. The corridor remained silent for a long time, the silence she had longed for, this time coming too late. The parking lot at the Houston Mall was always chaotic on weekends. Traffic, short stops, and maneuvers in tight spaces created a nervous atmosphere, but most drivers took it in stride. For 39-year-old Laura Nielsen, such situations were a constant source of irritation. She often told her neighbors that parking correctly was her principled position, and she had repeatedly gotten into conflicts when someone stopped in a way she didn't think was right. On that Sunday afternoon, the weather was warm, and people were coming out of the mall with packages, filling the driveways. Laura had just finished her shopping and was heading to her car when she noticed a dark blue sedan parked neatly in a free space nearby. The car was parked straight, in lines, with no irregularities. But Laura thought that this sector rightfully belonged to those who had been waiting longer. She approached the driver, a man in his mid-40s, and accused him of taking her place. The man responded with restraint. He had taken the first available seat without breaking the rules. But Laura was already filming him with her smartphone camera, emphasizing that he had taken her seat, which she was entitled to. Other drivers passing by tried not to look in her direction, as many had experienced her aggression before. After a few minutes of verbal argument, the man tried to end the conversation. Closing the door of his car, he explained that he did not want to continue the conflict. But Laura took it as a slight. She stood right in front of the hood, spreading her arms and saying that he was not going anywhere until he admits his guilt. The man turned off the engine and asked her several times to move away. When that didn't work, he moved forward very slowly, just a few centimeters, trying to show that he wanted to drive to the next lane and call the guards. Laura, on the contrary, climbed on the hood, leaned her knees on the edge, and grabbed the edge of the hood with her hands, doing everything she could to stop the car. Several witnesses had already gathered in the parking lot. Some tried to persuade Laura to get down, but she only shouted about injustice, recording herself on camera. The man stopped the car again and tried to open the door to call the guards, but Laura stuck her foot on the glass, preventing him from getting out. After a minute of fruitless attempts, he started driving slowly again, no more than 3-4 kilometers per hour. Enough to create minimal movement, but not enough to pose a direct risk. But Laura, sitting on the edge of the hood, lost her balance. The car rolled a few tens of centimeters forward, its body swayed, and she abruptly lost her footing. Her hands slipped off the metal, her knees gave way, and it all happened in a flash. Laura slid down and fell right in front of the right front wheel. The man immediately slammed on the brakes, but inertia had already taken its toll. Witnesses rushed to Laura. She was lying motionless. Her breathing was ragged and short. Someone ran to the mall building to call security, while others called an ambulance. The paramedics arrived 5 minutes later, but her chest and abdominal injuries were too severe. Despite resuscitation, Laura died on the spot. The police reviewed the footage from the cameras installed in the parking lot and confirmed that the driver was driving at a minimum speed and was not aggressive. The death was ruled an accident caused by the victim's own actions. After that, the mall began conducting short training sessions for security guards on how to handle situations with aggressive visitors, as employees said that such incidents were becoming more frequent. And everyone who saw that scene remembered one thing: it only takes one moment of stubbornness to turn a simple argument into an irreversible event. A Denver residential neighborhood in the southeast of the city consisted of identical 3-story houses with wooden balconies and neatly trimmed lawns. It was home to young families, office workers, and retirees. The neighborhood was peaceful, and the main disputes often boiled down to parking or household trivia. For 56-year-old Karen Doyle, this source of constant irritation was her upstairs neighbor, Thomas Gray, who went out on the balcony to smoke in the evenings. Karen repeatedly contacted the management company, complaining about the smell of tobacco. She demanded strict measures and even threatened to call the police, even though smoking on her own balcony did not violate any of the complex's rules. Over time, her dissatisfaction turned into an obsession. She perceived every time Thomas went out on the balcony as a personal provocation. Her friends recalled that she could talk for hours about her neighbor's chronic disrespect. On the evening of the tragedy, Karen was particularly tense. The aroma of cigarette smoke coming from the top floor triggered another surge of emotions. She decided that she had to set an example and respond on his level, but in a way that avoided direct conflict. To do this, she took out a metal coffee can, some frankincense incense she had bought earlier, and a few sheets of paper. The plan was simple: set fire to the paper along with the incense, place the can closer to the railing so that the smoke would rise up, creating uncomfortable conditions for Thomas. Karen was confident that this would affect her neighbor and make him reconsider his habits. She placed the jar on a plastic table, an old one that was slightly sunburnt but still quite usable. On windy days, this table swayed, but today, the wind seemed to be light. Karen lit the paper, added incense, and stepped back to the door, watching the thin column of smoke rise. For the first few minutes, everything went as she had planned. The smoke did indeed rise to the balcony above. But after a minute, a gust of wind, stronger than the previous ones, shifted the lightweight structure of the table. The jar shifted slightly and tipped over on its side, and the contents spilled out onto the table's surface. The flames immediately caught the edges of the thin plastic, which began to melt and drip down onto the wooden floor of the balcony. Karen grabbed a towel and tried to put out the fire, but the plastic only burned faster with the air movement. When she tried to hit the flames with the towel, it burst into flames in her hands, forcing Karen to step back. In a matter of seconds, the fire engulfed the bottom of the table and then spread across the wooden boards. Adding to the panic was the fact that Karen was trying to handle it herself, not wanting to call the fire department and thereby be labeled as having overreacted. She ran between the kitchen and the balcony with bowls of water, but the burning plastic and wood produced thick black smoke that quickly filled the apartment. Karen coughed several times, smelling a pungent burning odor, but continued to try to put out the fire. Several neighbors saw the fire from the street and called 911. Within a minute, however, it became apparent that the fire was spreading inside. Karen tried to get to the door, gasping for breath, but the smoke was too thick. Without oxygen and disoriented by carbon monoxide, she lost her balance and fell in the corridor, just a few meters from the exit. Firefighters arrived 6 minutes later. The fire was localized relatively quickly, but Karen was found inside with no signs of life. A forensic expert confirmed her death from acute intoxication by combustion products. After the incident, the management company replaced all plastic furniture with fireproof furniture and posted warning signs in each wing prohibiting the use of open flames on balconies. Thomas Gray, who never understood what exactly happened that evening, recalled for a long time that he lit a cigarette for only a few seconds and then entered the apartment without even noticing the tragedy. This case was a sad testament to how an emotional impulse and a failed educational gesture can turn into a real danger and take the life of the one who intended it. San Diego had many fitness clubs, but the one on Mason Avenue stood out because it was open almost around the clock and attracted people who came to work out late at night. At this time, the gym was half empty, a few regular customers, soft music from the speakers, and a number of exercise machines with their electronic panels flashing steadily. It was in this atmosphere that 41-year-old Nicole Harper did most of her workouts. Nicole was well known to the staff. She used to argue with the trainers about exercise technique, insisting that she knew her body better. The instructors had noticed more than once that her understanding of safety was superficial, but it was almost impossible to argue with her. Nicole interpreted any remark as a personal humiliation. On the evening of the tragedy, she came to the gym with characteristic determination. One of the trainers, David Lester, was teaching a small group in the neighboring area. When Nicole stepped on the treadmill, he noticed that she was planning to run at a very high speed and went over to warn her that it was dangerous to do so without warming up first. Nicole reacted sharply, saying that she doesn't need supervision and that everyone is responsible for themselves here. David took a step back, not wanting to deepen the conflict. But Nicole, as if to prove her independence, pressed the maximum speed on the track panel and added the maximum incline to the canvas. Such parameters were risky even for experienced athletes, but she didn't mind. Her movements were sharp and her breathing was intense from the very first seconds. The first steps were difficult. Nicole tried to keep up the pace, but her legs did not have time to adjust to the rapid movement of the canvas. The treadmill began to work at full speed. The engine was humming and the belt was moving with an intensity that required precise coordination. Nicole tried to increase her pace, but her body began to fall backwards. She grabbed the handrails, but was already losing control. At that moment, the machine threw her backwards abruptly. It happens when your legs can't keep up with the speed of the machine. Nicole heard a short phrase that sounded like a frightened exhalation, and she flew in the opposite direction, hitting the back of her head on the metal edge of the platform behind the track. The impact was sharp and deafening, a sound that made everyone in the room turn around. David was the first to rush to her side. Nicole was lying motionless, her eyes half open and no breathing. He checked for a pulse, but felt nothing. One of the visitors called an ambulance, another brought a first aid box, but there was little that could be done. The severe trauma to the cervical spine and the base of the skull had caused instantaneous respiratory failure. Paramedics arrived in 5 minutes. They pronounced him dead on the spot. David gave a brief explanation to the police, saying that he had warned Nicole not to use the maximum settings without proper training. The surveillance cameras showed that she entered the parameters on her own and got on the track without warming up. After the incident, the club's management updated the rules for using the cardio zone, adding a warning about the need to gradually adjust the speed and the mandatory completion of a short briefing for new clients. Club members have long recalled that evening when the empty gym was filled with icy silence, the silence that comes only after a sudden, irreversible event. Nicole Harper, who always thought she was in control of the situation better than anyone else, this time lost control of the simplest thing, her own safety. In each of these stories, a minor domestic conflict turned into a dangerous situation simply because the person failed to stop in time. Their intransigence, impulsive decisions, and belief in their own rightness pushed them to take actions that turned out to be fatal. All 6 cases are a reminder of how quickly emotions can overwhelm common sense, and the desire to prove one's position can turn into a real threat. Such tragedies rarely seem inevitable at first. They start with small things, a cue, noise, parking, or an argument. But when anger becomes stronger than caution, even ordinary environments, a store, a home, a gym, can become dangerous. These stories show that the line between a domestic conflict and an irreparable mistake is much thinner than it seems. And sometimes the most important thing is to just step aside, pause, and let the situation die down before it gets out of hand.